Happy Labor Day, everybody. Welcome to Glenn's Dynamic Sports Corner on 12OZSportsRadio.com. I am your host, Glenn Kaplan. And hey, how are we all doing today otherwise? Welcome to the 101st show here on 12OZSportsRadio.com. And I would like to thank everybody for tuning in, or whoever listened to on the replay, the 100th special this past Thursday. I'm hoping to have many more shows on here. So let's keep this train rolling today on Labor Day on the 7th of September. I hope you all are enjoying your weekend still. It's the last day of Labor Day weekend, and it seems as if the summer is apparently closing. And we are basically less than just a few days away from the start of the NFL season, but I'm going to get into the NFL later on this show. So, since today's the 7th, though nonetheless, let's start with all the 7th heavens and Game 7s that we had over the weekend in the National Hockey League. Let's start Dallas and Colorado. As they say in the playoffs, you always have to have great players. And that is true to win titles. And then there's always these guys that you don't expect to happen. And that's why you always seem to win a title compared to not, is these unsung heroes. Well, the unsung hero of Game 7 for the Dallas Stars, who he doesn't usually play, Joel Kiviranta scored the game-winning goal 7:24 into the overtime session for the Dallas Stars, 12:35 left. And it was assisted by Andrej Sekera and Jamie Alexiak. And it was a great play. That was a fantastic play behind the net by Sekera. And then Kiviranta sits in a soft spot right near front of the net, beats Michael Hutchison. It was a great play. It was absolutely fantastic, and he scored a hat trick. And I'm like, I saw that goal, and I'm like, wow. And that series, I thought Colorado was going to win that series in 7, but it's obvious that the injuries caught up to them. And as for the Dallas Stars, they march on the Western Conference Finals for the first time since 2008. And they lost to the Detroit Red Wings that year and happened to beat the Pittsburgh Penguins in 6 games. Speaking of the Pittsburgh Penguins, that goal looked very familiar to me, and I'm going to tell you why. In 2017, in the first round, Crosby was behind the net, and Guentzel was waiting in front of the net for the pass. If you take a look at the replay at those two goals, they are very, very similar how Dallas won the game and how Pittsburgh won the game then. That was when Pittsburgh had took a 3-0 lead against the Blue Jackets. That was when Columbus was the 4th best team that year in the league. And Pittsburgh was the 2nd best. They went on to win the whole thing in 6 games against the Nashville Predators. Hey, maybe we see the Dallas Stars win the Stanley Cup for the first time since 1999 when they beat the Buffalo Sabres in 6 games. But this Dallas Stars offense has turned on the switch ever since the playoffs arrived. I mean, where was this all year? There were questions about this Dallas Stars offense and whether it would perform or not. Because they're getting it from all 4 lines, from Rick Bowman, the head coach, who replaced Jim Montgomery, and now Anton Khudobin's doing a well enough job in place of Ben Bishop to be getting it done. So let's see what else happened throughout Game 7. First period, Dallas, Alexander Radulov, 239, assisted by Joe Pavelski and Miro Heiskanen. And Miro Heiskanen is a front runner right now for the Dallas Stars for the Conn Smythe. Colorado, Vladislav Nemestikov, 16-12 remaining in the first period, assisted by Ian Cole, Nazem Kadri. Andrei Burakovsky, 9:43, unassisted. Second period, Dallas, Joel Kiviranta, 3:06, assisted by Denis Gurianov and John Klingberg. Colorado, Nazem Kadri, 5:45 power play, assisted by Mikko Rantanen and Nazem Kadri. Third period, Alexander Radulov tied it at 3 on the power play, 11:28 in, 8:32 remaining in regulation. Next up, his goal was assisted by John Klingberg, Jamie Benn. Then Colorado takes a 4-3 lead with 3:40 left in regulation. 16:20, goal scored by Vladislav Menenstikov, assisted by JT Compher and Nikita Zadorov. Well, 10 seconds later, the unsung hero strikes for the Dallas Stars. Joe Kiviranta, 16:30, assisted by Ropins and Miro Heiskanen. Man, I can't tell you what I've been seeing from these Dallas Stars. I didn't think they had the offense, but I'm going to say one thing about Dallas. I thought that it was going to be Colorado or St. Louis in the finals, representing the West. And then I said there would be one team that would be foiling those plans. And they absolutely are. The Dallas Stars. Because they play in a tough Central Division with St. Louis and Colorado. And if I believe for 1 second that I believe a big believer in that Pacific Division, you're out of your bleeping minds. Because I am no way, shape, or form a believer in the Pacific Division whatsoever. And this is where, and then I'm not going to spoil it right now, but I'll get to my conference finals preview in just a little bit. Moving on from the Dallas Stars and Colorado Avalanche Game 7, Vancouver Canucks and the Vegas Golden Knights. No goals in the first two periods. And then, in the third period, on the power play, 13:52, with 6:08 remaining regulation, Shea Theodore, nice shot. Thatcher Demko didn't see it. I mean, that's the way he was playing. He was going to give him a goal like he was screened, and there's nothing you could do about it. There's nothing he could have done about it. And it's obvious that Demko is now going to be the Vancouver Canucks goalie moving forward. And Jakob Markstrom is out. They said he was unfit to play due to an injury, and he's finished. He's a good goalie. He'll be signed by somebody. He can definitely play. He wasn't the reason why Vancouver was down 3-1 in that series. It just happened to be that some way, somehow, Thatcher Demko just played out of his mind those 3 games. And that's what's going to cause Markstrom out. And yeah, they probably believe that Demko's the future goalie of this team anyways. So, and then 2 empty net goals by Vegas. Alex Tuck, 17:54, assisted by Paul Stastny. Vegas, Paul Stastny scores, assisted by Nicholas Roy, Jonathan Marchessault, 19:54. Is around the 2:05, 2:06, 2:07 mark, 2-0, and then around 5 to 7 seconds remaining in that game. And then Thatcher Demko, 33 saves for Vancouver Canucks. Robin Lehner made 14 saves for the Vegas Golden Knights, so nonetheless. And back to Dallas and Colorado just for a teensy second. Anton Khudobin in that game 7 finished with 40 saves for the Dallas Stars. Michael Hutchinson finished the game with 30 saves for the Colorado Avalanche, so nonetheless. Expect them to be on the Matt Murray market and maybe Jakob Markstrom, some other goalies too. Next, the New York Islanders and the Philadelphia Flyers. Oh, I thought Alan Vigneault was maybe going to get Barry Trotz once again. Down in a series 3-1. But Trotz was like, yeah, not this time. I'm not starting Semyon Varlamov. I'm going Thomas Greiss. And I'm making everything else happen. So he did start Thomas Greiss in that Game 7. He was absolutely phenomenal. Thomas Greiss, yeah, he only made 16 saves in the game. But let's be real. That Semyon Varlamov may have not gotten the job done in the Game 7, who flopped in Games 4 and 5 for the New York Islanders. And oh yeah, there's a goalie on the way next year by the name of Ilya Sorokin, who's going to be, I guess, the future of the New York Islanders. Not guess, he will be the future of the New York Islanders in that. And then he started this game because he made 36 saves in the Game 4 3-2 win. This time it was a winning effort. Now Carter Hart made 22 saves for the Philadelphia Flyers in a losing effort, though. nonetheless. And it's obvious that Hart is clearly the goalie of the future of this hockey team, but they are going to need more help around them in Alain Vigneault's bunch, the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers, though, nonetheless. So, the Islanders made Carter Hart look ordinary in this series. And yes, I know Matthew Barzal did not score a goal or record a point in Game 7. The Hartford Heart saw the New York Islanders, and he's just making everyone else around him better. As long as he's igniting this engine of this team, he's going to take them as far as he wants to. Let's see what happens in the conference finals when they finally have to play a pesky Tampa Bay Lightning team, which I think is by far the team that they have faced, and I'm going to preview those series in just a couple of moments. So let's see what the goals scored in this game were. First period, Scott Mayfield, 927, assisted by Devin Tays and Jordan Eberle. Second period goals, New York Islanders. First period also, Andy Green, 13-12, assisted by Derek Brassard and Brock Nelson. Is Andy Green turning back his clock days with the New Jersey Devils? He used to be a captain with them. And Green is just, I guess, grooming this defense. And there's another defensive prospect on the way, Noah Dobson, who's projected to... He might be potentially grooming him next year. My Uncle Frank and I, we were having those discussions yesterday concerning he's an Islanders fan. So in the second period, on Green's goal was Brassard and Nelson on the assist. In the second period goals, New York Islanders, Brock Nelson, 11-26, assisted by Josh Bailey, Ryan Pulock. Third period goals, New York Islanders, Anthony Beauvillier, 13-42, assisted by Brock Nelson and Josh Bailey. Anthony Beauvillier and Josh Bailey, right, and Brock Nelson, Josh Bailey. I mean, they're playing really well, those guys. So is Matthew Barzal. The Islanders Leafs played pretty good. Defense with Devin Tays and Scott Mayfield and Adam Pelech and Ryan Pulock. Andy Green? You mean to tell me that this team, they could go all the way? Will they? I think a lot of things are going to have to bounce their way in the conference finals. That's what I think. And head coach Barry Trotz pushed all the right buttons, especially when it came to Game 7, because he did not want to be the first coach in franchise history to blow a 3-1 series lead. And there are so many passionate New York Islanders fans that there is a place out in Long Island, a bagel shop, that they're basically giving away free bagels because they're so passionate about the hockey team right now. Could you imagine if they win the whole thing? And oh yes, Belmont's coming. Belmont is coming after next season. So that'll be interesting. And one thing to say before I move on to the next segment. So, for all you New York Islanders fan bases out there, I got to say something to you about this. Do you remember last year in the Stanley Cup playoffs? Where, in the first round you sweep the Pittsburgh Penguins at the Nassau Coliseum. And then in the second round, you get swept by the Carolina Hurricanes because you can play at the Barclays Center. Because, there's sometimes there are fan arenas. My Uncle Frank tells me this stuff all the time. And it's like, okay, so now if you're going to be fan arenas here, and if you're going to blame the Islanders losing last year because you went to Barclays, then you better blame them losing in the if they lose in the conference finals or the Stanley Cup finals. Then you also better blame the arena as well. Because you played well in Toronto, and we were going to act as if that was the Nassau Coliseum for them. And now you're switching to Edmonton and the Rogers Place, and now you're all going to act like that's the Barclays Center. But I guarantee if the Islanders lose, none of those Long Island or Brooklyn fans, whoever else they are across the country, that they're going to blame it on the arena. They're only going to blame it because they only belong out on the island and not in Brooklyn until they get to Belmont next year, where everyone can shut their bleeping mouths up about it. So that's my no-filter Glenn take for right now. Use promo code 12Z Sports. All caps for deposit bonus up to $1,000 for my bookie. On to my next hockey segment. Let's give a round of applause for Oskar Lindblom, the Philadelphia Flyers forward. The return of Oskar Lindblom for the Philadelphia Flyers. So Oskar Lindblom returned to the lineup for the Philadelphia Flyers in Game 6 against the New York Islanders. The game was crazy. Philadelphia won that game over New York 4-3 in double overtime. Even Provorov, assisted by Kevin Hayes, won in double overtime with 4:57 remaining. But more importantly about that game, though, everyone gave stick taps beforehand, before the game, to show the ultimate respect. And he had Ewing sarcoma, and he completed all of his cancer treatment. So this is great. We were happy to see you back. Inspirational to us all. And New York Islanders head coach Barry Trotz, before he said anything, after the game, before he would allow the media to ask him questions in Game 7, he'd be like, first of all, I would like to talk about Oskar Lindblom and what kind of inspirational he is. And that's props to Barry Trotz and the entire hockey world, because the head coach of the New York Islanders gets it. And boy, did wish the Washington Capitals wish you had him back. Scott Abraham, WGLA ABC 7, basically said in Arlington, Virginia, he's like, yeah, I wish yeah. So is Barry Trotz a good head coach or nah? He's like, everyone's probably like, yeah. So there's that. So once again, a round of applause for Oskar Lindblom returning to hockey. Let's hope he never has to miss a game ever again for those kind of reasons. All right. So he'll be obviously a key piece of the Philadelphia Flyers moving forward. And one other thing is about the Philadelphia Flyers, other than Carter Hart, Claude Giroux, Sean Couturier, Travis Konecny, Kevin Hayes, and some of those guys may be the answer moving forward. Claude Giroux's contract's up in 2 years. I'm not sure if they're going to win the Stanley Cup with him as the captain of the Philadelphia Flyers. I mean, I just don't know. The Harpy Hartzell of the Flyers. I just don't know if they're going to win it with him. I think they could keep him around if they strip the C off him. I don't think he's a captain. I think he played better when he was an A, when he was an assistant captain. Remember back in 2012 against the Pittsburgh Penguins how well he played in that playoff series? He also played well against the New Jersey Devils despite them losing 5 with Peter Laviolette. Maybe Vigneault needs to strip him to the sea. Maybe some people are just not fit for it. Maybe he needs to go to a guy like Sean Couturier. I think Couturier can handle it, and they call him Coots. I think they missed him. He played in Game 7, but he wasn't the same, obviously. And I had a Flyers fan text me, thinks that Kevin Hayes might be their leader, and he's like, thank you, New York Rangers. Like, no, it was thank you, Winnipeg Jets, because that's where he came from, although he was traded from the Rangers to the Jets before the Flyers signed him. Though, nonetheless. So, it's obviously a big offseason for the Philadelphia Flyers, and I'm sure they're going to do a lot of things with grace and class moving forward. Though, nonetheless. All right, on to my Eastern Conference Finals preview. Actually, the NHL Stanley Cup Conference Finals preview. So, the New York Islanders and the Tampa Bay Lightning. This series has a lot of headlines, for a lot of reasons. This will be the 4th time in 6 seasons that the Tampa Bay Lightning are in the Eastern Conference Finals, and this is the 2nd time in 3 seasons that Barry Trotz has been in the Eastern Conference Finals. He has helped the Washington Capitals defeat the Tampa Bay Lightning in 7 games back in 2018. This is a Cinderella story for the New York Islanders. And I was saying this to my dad. So the New York Islanders were the only team that at the start of these Stanley Cup playoffs, they were the only ones in the Stanley Cup qualifiers. That's basically the equivalent of in the NCAA tournament. Okay, remember VCU back in 2011, from the first 4 as an 11 seed to the final 4 as an 11 seed. That's what it basically this New York Islanders team is. From the first 4 to the final 4. We're in the final 4. Sure, this is what's very similar to. Anders Lee is the captain, and he has played well. Steven Stamkos, the captain of Tampa Bay Lightning, is out for the series, according to head coach Jon Cooper. But he did say in his presser that if anything changes for the series, he will let them know. So he has made it clear, so he didn't fool anyone. I remember that in 2016 against the Pittsburgh Penguins conference finals. I'm like, he's coming back for Game 7. I was like, oh, geez. I got kind of a little frightened for a second that he was coming back, but we'll see what happens. I would expect for that Game 7, I would expect Nikita Kucherov to return for the series for Tampa Bay. He's probably going to play Game 1 tonight, Kucherov. Goaltending discrepancy is a big difference for the Lightning. As in, Andrei Vasilevskiy is obviously better than what Thomas Greiss and Semyon Varlamov is basically combined. It is a very good run for the Islanders, but a couple of tweaks for Matthew Barzal and company will be in the works. What I mean by that is I don't think they're going to win this series, and they're going to make a couple of tweaks to that team in the offseason for Matthew Barzal and company, and it will be in the works. Braden Point and Andrei Vasilevskiy will carry them into the Stanley Cup Finals, and Thomas Greiss and Semyon Varlamov will not, though, nonetheless. And a couple of key role players, I'm going to give you 3 from each team. New York Islanders role players: Derek Brassard, Leo Komarov, and Josh Bailey. On the other side, maybe Brock Nelson could have another big series. But I would like to see Tom Kunako play unless he's hurt. As for Tampa Bay, Andre Palat, Cedric Paquette, Ryan McDonough, Kevin Shattenkirk, and Alex Killorn are going to be some of the key X factors in this series for the defensemen. The pick, Tampa Bay Lightning in 5. Dallas Stars against the Vegas Golden Knights. This was one of the biggest surprises, to be honest with you, although nonetheless. Dallas has an offensive outburst, and Vegas has been shaky. Goaltending isn't great in this series. Anton Khudobin and Robert Lehner is blah. Jake Ottinger and Marc-Andre Fleury will both be ready to be called upon in this series if need be. Ben Bishop, I wouldn't expect to be back in this series for the Dallas Stars, though, nonetheless. Dallas has more household names like Miro Heiskanen, Joe Pavelski, Corey Perry, Jamie Benn, and Tyler Seguin. Vegas has Max Pacioretty, Alex Tuch, William Karlsson, Riley Smith, and Jonathan Marchessault. The difference in this series will be depth play, though nonetheless, the pick, Dallas Stars in 7. So, staying with this series, I'm going to get to now the Game 1 recap that I watched last night. And it was happened to only be, shockingly, what I just read to you on the preview is nothing what it was like last night in Game 1. In Game 1, Dallas won 1-0. So the only goal scored in the game was 2:36 and 17:24 remaining in the period, and it was into the game though nonetheless. John Klingberg, assisted by Jamie Benn and Radek Faksa. Radek Faksa has been pretty good. I was looking through the free agency list yesterday, and Faksa's going to be getting paid a good amount of money. Maybe $3-4 million with the way he's contributing in this postseason. Dallas has all of a sudden flipped the switch on offense. I've been saying it to you guys earlier on this show about the Dallas Stars. And that this team is for real. Radek Faksa, he's just contributing all over the ice. And in this game, for the first time ever, Anton Khudobin, 25 saves. His first career playoff shutout for the Dallas Stars. And Marc-Andre Fleury actually did get called upon for Game 1, and I don't understand why. He did have 24 saves for the Vegas Golden Knights. And let's please not pretend that Fleury was the reason why they lost. For some reason, ever since the Thatcher... You know what the Vegas Golden Knights are suffering from right now? Thatcher Demko, I guess syndrome or whatever, because they can't seem to score goals. That is as simple as that with the Dallas Stars. Not the Dallas Stars, the Vegas Golden Knights, excuse me. And wouldn't it be something if Anton Khudobin would be able to carry this team all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals? A backup goalie, and hey, he's actually done the job. I wouldn't say he's obviously the greatest goalie who ever lived or played the game of hockey, but he's definitely, hey, get me a save, get me a key save, I'll do it. He's not, the thing about Khudobin is, he's not letting in those bad goals really per se. Though nonetheless, moving on from the NHL into the NBA. Okay, so, and this is where I'm going, I wouldn't say crazy, but remember when the Los Angeles Clippers demolished the Denver Nuggets in Game 1? And everyone's like, sweep, 5 games, stop. No, it's not only going to last 5 games. You fools, this is going 6 or 7, and Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray will be the reason why. That will be the reason why this goes 6 or 7. I still believe 100% that the Los Angeles Clippers win this series in 7 games. But would I be a little surprised if Denver won this series? Yeah, a little bit. Would I be overly stunned? Probably not, because I know how good Denver is. Let's not pretend that Denver's just a team that's a bunch of scrubs, because that's obviously not the case. If you think Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are scrubs, then you obviously have not been watching the Denver Nuggets. And all of a sudden, in these playoffs, that the Clippers defense is all that, because it obviously isn't there. It's not because the guys haven't played together all year. That's why the defense is discombobulated. That's why it's like that. You don't know what you're getting from Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and also Pat Beverly, Marcus Morris, Landry Shamet, Vaca Zubac. You don't know what you're getting every night. You know what you're going to get every night from Denver. You know it's going to be Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic in its pick and pop game. And then they get their 3rd, 4th, or 5th score. It's going, great. And they also had other guys step up in game 2. Jeremy Grant and Gary Harris Jr. on the defensive end were spectacular. They did a number on Kawhi Leonard. And the thing about this is this. Someone posted on their Twitter that here's the thing. The night before with Game 1 with the Rockets and Lakers, which I'll get to in a couple of minutes, that there was a meme out there that the media, a big whole riot of Twitter people when LeBron scores 0 points, compared to Kawhi Leonard with 0, and the guy said, imagine Kawhi Leonard scoring 0 points in a playoff game in the 4th quarter. Well, he was wrong the next night and had to privatize his tweets so he wouldn't get roasted and burned. Ouch and yikes. As they say, Freezing Cold Takes. I don't know if you follow that page on Twitter, but it's an absolute great follow, I guess, right? How do you raise your hand? All you followers and listeners listening to the show right now, raise your hand if you follow that page on Twitter. Because I certainly do, and now I can put my hand down. So, let's get to some of the statistics in this Denver and Los Angeles game, which Denver won by a score of 110-101. Always had the lead, at a big lead of 23, 24, 25 points. Jamal Murray, 27 points, 47.6% shooting from the field, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 block, and 2 steals. Nikola Jokic, 26 points, 58.8% shooting from the field, 18 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks, and 6 assists. Kawhi Leonard, 13 points, 23.5% shooting from the field, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 1 block, and 3 steals. So, it's a little shaky. A little shaky for Kawhi Leonard. Paul George, 22 points, 36.8% shooting from the field, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks, and 2 steals. Not bad. But like I've said with the Clippers, and it's a big game 3 tonight. So we'll see how this winds up going. But if you had to tell me what I think is going to happen for the rest of this series, I think Nuggets win game 3, Clippers wins game 4 and 5, Nuggets win game 6, Clippers win game 7. That's what I think is going to happen in this series. I think it's going to be like that. I think Denver wins tonight. Clippers wins game 4 and 5, then Denver wins game 6 and the Clippers win game 7. That's how I feel. That's what I believe is going to happen. Moving on to the Rockets and the Lakers. When the Lakers winning 117-109 in game 2 to tie the series at 1. And wait a second. Do I have a brick in this room? Tartar sauce. I can't find any bricks in here. Man, I guess Russell Westbrook didn't leave me a brick. Oh, I feel so sorry. I was hoping he would give it to me as a gift or something. All right, he's got many more chances to give me bricks as gifts. Because you want to know why the Lakers won yesterday? Not because of how LeBron and Anthony Davis played. James. The real reason why the Lakers won yesterday, because Russell Westbrook made of house of bricks, and he was completely reckless and ruthless, and he was careless and is like, what am I doing? Dude, he was downright. You want to say Russell Westbrook's the most overrated point guard of all time? The triple-double hype, the triple-double this? You want to know a guy who does triple-doubles efficiently? How about the guy in Denver, Nikola Jokic? He doesn't put up bricks. He makes teammates better. He's well-respected in the Denver locker room. Why do you think Kevin Durant left Oklahoma City, go to Golden State, play with Steph Curry? You think he wanted to deal with Russell Westbrook? Westbrook? Sorry, I'm pronouncing the name wrong. Sorry. I mean, I'm just sitting here spinning out facts. Westbrook, yeah, the triple-double thing is not... Yeah, it's old news with you because you don't do it efficiently. You want to know who also does it efficiently? How about a guy in the name of Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks? Oh, and he's already better than you. So, Westbrook, take a look in the mirror. Take a good, hard look in the mirror. Because if you play like that the next game, that outfit you wore post-game, that orange outfit, that's like... That looked like a... I don't know if y'all saw it, but it was like it looked like he was going to jail or something. Something obviously, like, that's not his character, but it's like, it was a very interesting outfit, and he's also very fashionable and stylish. Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook. So let's see what his stats were. 10 points, 26.7% shooting from the field, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals. James Harden, 27 points, 50% shooting from the field, 2 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals. When will it be a matter of time until James Harden decides to call out Russell Westbrook and curse him out? Westbrook. Why do I keep saying the name wrong today? Jeez, I must be batting 0 with it. Oy vey. Alright, my apologies. Back. Okay, I've had enough of my Westbrook shenanigans. It's back to Westbrook. But more importantly, Eric Gordon had 24 points, 1 rebound, and 3 assists. Now for the Lakers, Anthony Davis, 34 points, 62.5% shooting from the field, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and 1 block. LeBron James, 28 points, 58.8% shooting from the field, 11 rebounds, 9 assists, 2 blocks, and 4 steals. And very important for the Los Angeles Lakers yesterday, they got Rajon Rondo back. Rajon Rondo, playoff Rondo, 10 points, 3 rebounds, 9 assists, and 5 steals. For a playoff Rondo, baby. Playoff Rondo, baby, is back. He's back then better than ever. It's, oh, baby, if he gets him going, he's just... Lakers may win it all. And I'm just going to sit here and say this about Rondo. Remember a couple years ago when he was with the Chicago Bulls and they were playing the Boston Celtics? They were up 2-0 and then he goes down and they had Dwayne Wade and they lost the next 4. Excuse me? And that was an 8-1 matchup. So that was an 8-1 matchup. I'm just curious. I'm just really curious to see in the long run if Rondo is able to keep playing at a high level. Because if it is, as I've said, the Los Angeles Lakers are probably going to win the NBA title. And for all the Lakers haters out there, that's probably not good news for any of you guys. It's simply just not. I know how many of you guys probably want to see LeBron James Los Angeles Lakers lose. And oh baby, that would be something. Next, the Toronto Raptors, though nonetheless. All right, the Toronto Raptors and the Boston Celtics. This could have very well been a sweep for the Boston Celtics. However, OG Anunoby saved their season in Game 3 when they were down 103-101. He hits a shot on a beautiful pass. It was an outlet court pass from one side of the court to the other, from Kyle Lowry over Taco Fall's head to a wide open Andrew Anunoby, who Jason Tatum committed one side, and he couldn't get it done. So Anunoby hit the shot. He just walked off like nothing happened. Fred VanVleet grabbed him, jumped on him, and now because of it, the Toronto Raptors won Game 4, and the series is now tied at 2 games apiece. And a pivotal Game 5 looming tonight, 6:30 p.m. Eastern on TNT. I still believe the Boston Celtics will win this series in 7. But if the Raptors win Game 5, I don't think the Celtics recover. I think the Celtics need a win tonight. I think the Celtics need Game 5 more than I think the Raptors do. And I say that simply because I think the Raptors can bounce back mentally. Because if the Celtics don't win tonight, I think they're going to mentally check out for Game 6. I could totally see that happening. Because Tatum and Brown have been struggling the last 2 games. And Nick Nurse, the great head coach and the great mastermind that he is, has finally figured out something against Brad Stevens. As they say, one shot, one play, one possession, you could change an entire series and an entire playoff picture and complexion. Because that's what the Toronto Raptors are doing now in the East. So in Game 4, what happened? Pascal Siakam, 23 points, 43.5% shooting from the field, 11 rebounds and 2 assists. Kyle Lowry, 22 points, 31.2% shooting from the field, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. Jason Tatum, 24 points, 55.6% shooting from the field, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. Kemba Walker, 15 points, 44.4% shooting from the field, 2 rebounds, 8 assists, 1 steal. OG Anunoby scored 11 points. Jaylen Brown scored 14. So, this series has been very, very good. None of the games have really been, except for Game 1, maybe blowout. They haven't been blowouts, but the Celtics seem to be regressing every game. And the Raptors maybe getting a little better and better. That's why Game 5, and I'm watching it very closely tonight to see how tight this is going to be. Because if the Raptors win Game 5 tonight, I could be coming on the show on Thursday after Game 6 is over and be like, Raptors advance the Eastern Conference Finals, potentially face the Miami Heat. And with OG Anunoby scoring 11 points for Toronto and Jaylen Brown 14 points for the Boston. We'll see what happens in Game 5 tonight between the Toronto Raptors and the Boston Celtics, though. Nonetheless, and now move on to the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. What, is there fool's gold anywhere around here? I don't see anything gold. I don't know what the Milwaukee Bucks found after Giannis Antetokounmpo got hurt yesterday, but they must have found a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, because that's fool's gold, because I don't think this is getting past Game 5. You mean it took me Chris Middleton to play the game of his life? And you mean to tell me that it had to take a Giannis Antetokounmpo injury for them to play this well? You kidding me? I'm just sitting here, I'm like, let's not be fooled. And a 3-0 deficit has never happened in the NBA, and it's not happening now. Not a chance. No way. You can book that one. Because I just simply do not see that happening. So Giannis Antetokounmpo left this game with a sprained ankle and did not return. Antetokounmpo left the game in pain and had to be carried off the court, though nonetheless he was in a walking boot. And I still think this is the end of the Milwaukee Bucks as we know it. As for the Miami Heat, I believe they're going to win this in Game 5. They are going to deserve a ton of credit once this series is over. And I truly believe that Mike Budenholzer was clearly outcoached and outclassed in the series by Eric Spoelstra, though, nonetheless. So now let's go to the box scores for this Game 4 that the Milwaukee Bucks won. Round 116 to 112, 113. Middleton, Chris, 36 points, 42.9% shooting from the field, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and 2 steals for Chris Middleton. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 19 points, 80% shooting from the field, 4 rebounds, 1 block, and 1 steal. Giannis Antetokounmpo is in a walking boot. I really don't think he's going to really play in Game 5. I just don't see it happening. Eric Bledsoe and Brook Lopez scored 14 points each for Milwaukee. Bam Adebayo, 17 points, 40% shooting from the field, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals. Duncan Robinson, 20 points, 53.8% shooting from the field, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 steal. Jay Crowder, 18 points, Tyler Herro, 11 points. So, those were the stat lines in the Miami game and the Milwaukee game. The Miami Heat will beat the Milwaukee Bucks in the next game in 5. It lasts no longer than 6. As I said, hey, Miami in 6 over Milwaukee. So let's see what happens with the Milwaukee Bucks Miami Heat, though, nonetheless, moving forward. And let me get into a trade. Well, where will Giannis Antetokounmpo be traded to in the offseason? Assuming that the Milwaukee Bucks don't win the series against Miami Heat, here's a trade that will work for both Milwaukee and the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks would acquire Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Milwaukee Bucks would acquire Dwight Powell, DeLon Wright, Maxi Kleber, Dorian Finney-Smith, and maybe multiple first-round draft picks. Yes, and that trade fits the cap. And then you could also play with Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. And my friends like to me, he's like, you want to get the all-global team because that's what Mark Cuban wants? I'm like, nah, I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking about that because that just fits the cap. And I think it'd be a good trade for both sides. You get some players in return. You don't lose them for nothing. You get some first-round picks back. And a team with Kristaps Porzingis, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic, and that changes the complexion of the the Western Conference entirely. And speaking of changing complexion trades in the Western Conference, here's a mock trade that I have. And the same guy who I talked this about with, and I know, and I believe the Denver Nuggets won't win. The Denver Nuggets will not win the series. But if Denver does win, then I'm going to shut my mouth, basically. But for right now, I'm not going to because I don't believe they're going to win the series. I don't think they will have to make this trade to get to the conference finals, Western Conference Finals, the NBA Finals, or win it all in the NBA Finals. So here's a trade that I think that they're missing. The Washington Wizards would acquire Gary Harris Jr., Will Barton, Monty Morris, Keita Bates-Diop, and P.J. Dozier. The Denver Nuggets would acquire Bradley Beal. So how does this change the West? Well, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., Jeremy Grant, Noah Vonleh, Torrey Craig, and Troy Daniels would still all be on the roster. And you have Bradley Beal, who he is one of the best players in the NBA today. He's a shooter and a wing defender, and I think they're missing some wing defense. And then probably the Wizards, the trade piece would maybe start with Michael Porter Jr. But Gary Harris Jr., all these guys are still young. Gary Harris Jr. could shoot. Will Barton is good. Monty Morris, he gets valuable minutes. PJ Dozier, I think he has tons of potential. And Bates Diop, I think, could play get valuable minutes with the Wizards. I tried looking at a trade for John Wall, but that's not happening with his cap situation injury history. But you also got Thomas Bryant, Rui Hachimura, David Bertans. And if you had those 5 guys, you got 5 guys back. Maybe if they were to trade Michael Porter Jr., which I don't see happening, I don't think Denver would give him up. Because Denver's basically said, we are not giving up Michael Porter Jr. in the trade. But if you give up Gary Harris Jr., Will Barton, Monty Morris, Keita Bates, Diop, and PJ Dozier. And the thing is, Denver, you still got... Oh, and you got Paul Millsap. So your starting 5 would be Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., Paul Millsap, and Bradley Beal. And you still have Jeremy Grant, Noah Vonleh, Torrey Craig, and Troy Daniels. Oh, and you still have Mason Plumlee coming off the bench if you're the Denver Nuggets. And Gary Harris and PJ Dozier and Bates Diop, who doesn't play. Monty Morris gets some minutes, and Will Barton plays. But I think that's a trade that works for both teams. That's a and the thing is, Denver doesn't lose much on the bench. All they maybe have to do is sign up maybe a backup decent point guard for the veterans minimum. Other than that, Denver Nuggets and the Dallas Mavericks with the 2 trades that I just mentioned. Oh, and with the return of the Golden State Warriors and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson next year. And you got the Clippers and the Lakers, both in Los Angeles. And then we'll see about the Houston Rockets. And the rise of the New Orleans Pelicans and maybe the Phoenix Suns. You're talking about a stacked Western Conference. I mean, teams got to be pretty stoked. I mean, that's got to be exciting. If that were to actually happen this offseason, what I said about the Mavericks and the Nuggets with in Dallas and Denver, that might be your Western Conference Finals next season. But Denver ain't worrying about that right now. Denver's worrying about, okay, Denver's got to worry about next season. What do we got? They're not worried about next season. They're worried about Game 3 tonight, which is scheduled for 9 o'clock on TNT. I'm sure people in their front office will worry about it later, so will head coach Mike Malone. And I just think that there's just a lot of great things going on. And I believe they do a lot of things with grace and class, the entire Denver Nuggets organization. And I just wanted to float those 2 trade ideas out there for Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Milwaukee Bucks, and Bradley Beal, the Washington Wizards. Use promo code 12Z Sports, all caps, for a deposit bonus up to $1,000 for my bookie. So now, moving on from the NBA, for the first, 47 minutes I talked about the NHL and the NBA. Now, done with the NHL and the NBA today. It's on to the NFL, which starts on Thursday. But before I get into the games potentially starting on Thursday, that Adrian Peterson has been released by the Washington football team. The Washington football team decided to release running back Adrian Peterson. He is one of the greatest running backs of all time, and he only played with the Minnesota Vikings as well, though, nonetheless. Head coach Ron Rivera thought this wasn't about him, but more about the direction of this football team, though, nonetheless. So here we go. Antonio Gibson, who I believe is a clone of Deebo Samuel to San Francisco 49ers. Bryce Love out of Stanford University, and J.D. McKissick are the other tailbacks. They'll be used in this offense, though, nonetheless. Gibson and Love are rookies, and McKissick is not. Though, nonetheless, an offense coordinator, Steve Turner's offense, though, nonetheless. So, Adrian Peterson, 35 years old. He did sign a 1-year deal with the Detroit Lions for $1.05 million. In his career, he's played in 164 games, 3,056 rushing attempts for 14,216 yards and 111 touchdowns. And receiving in his career, 289 receptions for 2,036 yards and 2,365 yards and 6 touchdowns. And last season, 211 rushing attempts, 898 yards, and 5 touchdowns. I also had 142 receiving yards on 17 receptions. So, I thought Adrian Peterson was going to retire. Obviously, a first ballot Hall of Famer. And we will see if he gets into the Hall of Fame. Obviously, he is going to be in the Hall of Fame. I meant to say we will see when he is going to retire. Though, nonetheless, next up, the season coming up on Thursday, and it starts between the Houston Texans, Kansas City Chiefs, and they're going to raise the banner, the Chiefs. And this is going to be a whole time celebration. And obviously on Thursday, welcome to my NFL week-by-week picks. And I'm also going to have bold predictions for you guys. But you're obviously going to have to wait till Thursday's show to find out about what happens. So, the NFL season is going to begin this upcoming Thursday, though, nonetheless, between the Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium, Kansas City, Missouri. And the Kansas City Chiefs, along with a few other teams, are going to have fans in the stands. The Kansas City Chiefs already got their championship rings. Thursday, September 10th is kickoff. The first full Sunday, September 13th of the NFL regular season. Monday, September 14th, first Monday night games of the regular season, though, nonetheless. And I'm going to stay here in the NFL. So, Deshaun Watson, a 4-year, $160 million deal with the Houston Texans, 10-5 record, 333 of 495 passes completed, 67.3 completion percentage, 3,852 yards, 26 touchdowns, 12 interceptions last season, 82 rushing attempts, 413 yards rushing, and 7 touchdowns. And Rush, 217, 1,233 yards and 14 in his career, touchdowns, 37 games starting his career, 24-13 record, 804, 1204 passes, 66.8% completion percentage, 9,716 yards, 71 touchdowns, 29 interceptions in his career. And I think Deshaun Watson deserves his money. I think he's a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think Jackson's the passer like not Mahomes. Watson is. So we'll see what happens. And Lamar Jackson's next to get a big payday after Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. Though nonetheless, next up. So Jadeveon Clowney signs with the Tennessee Titans. And now it's obvious that the Tennessee Titans, I truly believe, are Super Bowl contenders. It's going to open up the lane for Harold Landry and potentially Vic Beasley and Jeffrey Simmons and Daquan Jones. I think the Titans, and it might set up them in short field position, because the thing about Clowney is, as long as he's healthy, he's going to change the field. They're going to be able to get a pass rush. And to win in the NFL, you have to get a pass rush. Especially when you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson and Lamar Jackson. Because with guys having like Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, and Patrick Mahomes, you're going to have to get the job done and get after the quarterback. And the Tennessee Titans are obviously one of the best teams in the NFL. And there's a reason why I think they're potentially a top 5 team. And there's a reason why I think they're going to get back to the AFC Championship game this season. So the deal's for 1 year, but it's going to be for $12 million. But it has the potential to go up to $15 million. Sacks, 236 total tackles, and 71 tackles for a loss. So last season with Seattle, 13 games played, 11 games started, 27-yard pick 6, 3 pass deflections, 4 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, 1 touchdown, 3 sacks, 31 tackles, 7 tackles for a loss. And boy, oh boy, does Clowney want to get back at Houston, and now playing with Tennessee. The Tennessee Titans are a very dangerous team moving forward, though nonetheless. Now, the last signing that I want to talk about, and that ferocious Pittsburgh Steelers front. Cameron Heyward. So with all these signings, Peterson's 35, Watson's 23, 24, 25, Jadeveon Clowney is 27 years old, and Cameron Heyward's 31 years old. So Cameron Heyward gets a 4-year extension, $75.1 million to stay with the Steelers. So you also got Bud Dupree and TJ Watt. And you lost Javon Hargrave on the defense. And you also have on the defense Devin Bush and Cameron Heyward, 31 years old, played in 16 games, started in all of them last year. 1 forced fumble, 6 pass deflections, 1 fumble recovery, 9 sacks, 83 tackles, 7 for a loss for Cameron Heyward. And in his career, he started in 134 games, starting in 90. He's played in 134 games. Yeah, he's played in 134 games. He started in 99 of them. In those 99 games started in his career, 30 pass deflections, 6 forced fumbles, 5 fumble recoveries, 54 sacks, 397 tackles, and 79 tackles for a loss. So those are his stats, Cameron Heyward's. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of time here. Thanks for tuning in Glenn's Dynamic Sports Corner. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. I'll be back on the air. Enjoy the rest of your Labor Day. I'll be back on the air at the same time as Thursday, though. I will go over some more NBA and NHL game recaps. Maybe some MLB topics as well. And NFL preview for Week 1 and bowl predictions. Use promo code 12OZ all cash with deposit bonus up to $1,000 from my bookie. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. Have a wonderful Labor Day, and I hope to be back here on Thursday.